if we keep playing and fighting for each other. And no matter what happens, we just say, what's next? That's all we do. Somebody turn on some damn music.
You're listening to the Gambling Gauchos. Talking Texas Tech, betting on the Big 12 and beyond. We've got everything you need, money lines, memes, and matadors.
Well, you want to quit, Ethan? That'll be the day.
Now, here's Kyle Jacobson and Rob Bro, the Moneyline Matadors, the Casino Cowboys, the Parlay Picadors.
You see, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. You dig. Win.
The Gambling Gauchos. Oh, and one more thing. It's all West Texas. It always has been.
Ooh, welcome into the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson. Live from the Cardinals Sports Center studio. If you need to gear up for your best heckling moments at Texas Tech baseball games or anything else, literally anything else, sporting goods wise, you need Under Armour clothes, some fashion, anything you need, you can do it at Cardinal Sports Center. In person, just inside the loop, outside the loop, or online at mycardinalsports.com. Kyle, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Splendid.
I was geared up all weekend out at Dan Law.
We both were, yeah. Had our Gauchos hats on.
We did.
I always wonder if that's a little awkward. Like,
why is it awkward?
These guys wear their own merch everywhere. If they leave us, they're like,
that's called brand recognition, baby.
Absolutely. It's on purpose. I just wonder if anybody like leaves and is like the whole time. Anyways.
If anybody leaves and what the whole time? You cut out for a second.
It just comments on our merch wearing.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure some people think that we never miss a chance to promote ourselves.
Speaking of, we're live on YouTube. You can follow us there every Sunday night. This is a Monday night stream, but generally Sunday nights, Kyle was driving back to Fort Worth yesterday after a TCU series. You can follow us on YouTube. Smash that subscribe button. Hit the like button. YouTube.com/@GamblingGauchos. That is an @ sign. I don't know why they do that in the link on YouTube. I think that's so stupid. It should just be /GamblingGauchos.
Yeah.
But you can find us there. Do you want to start with the baseball or do you want to start with Coach Gas? Because I'm pretty gassed up after that introductory press conference.
Yeah, gas me up. Let's start there.
Gas me up. He hit all the right notes today, I think. Well, first of all, Kirby hit all the right notes, bringing his family up, letting Norrance talk unplanned. I think that was even better for Norrance. Like, you could have planned to have Norrance say something, but it was even better to just bring him out of the crowd to say his piece. And, of course, Norrance, says it right, says it succinctly. This guy gets it. He's one of us. He understands the culture. He understands West Texas. And you hit all those notes in the presser. The introductory, it's not really a press con. They have a press conference afterwards, but it's like a celebration, pep rally, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it was a good time. I was there. But I did think you hit all the right notes. Was there a favorite quote or line that Gas had that had you thinking?
Hand up. I've not had a chance to watch the press conference yet. So I'm going to lean on you, and I might analyze about stuff that you told me he said, but I haven't had a chance to watch yet.
Yeah, so one of them was, he was coming home, right? not coming. Well, I guess it is home now, but he flew in Friday. Him and his family flew in, got here, and somebody apologized, I guess, for the weather. And he was like, "Oh, I wouldn't have recognized this place if it wasn't looking like this right now." And that's when he dropped the line. He's worked in Midland, he's worked in Lubbock. If you love West Texas, you love it. And I thought that was a good line. And again, just about the family aspects, the culture aspects, the competitive aspects. He used the word juice several times. He said his bro hug with Joey was violent. I thought that was a nice line.
Yeah, I love that.
So again, and I've said this on the Rob Bro Show, currently on KKM for now, quite a few times, that I'm a sucker for press conferences. So I've really tried to reel myself back from doing that, because I just like hear a guy and it's like, oh, that's going to work. Like, yeah, he'll be able to execute that plan. But just because you have a good plan, I thought Matt Wells had a good plan. He just could never execute his plan. So I do like a lot of what McCaslin said today. I didn't have any like red flags. Sometimes you do. Going back to Matt Wells, tortillas. But you didn't really have any of those moments. And I thought overall it went really smooth.
The man can dress.
And he looked good.
You know, I've tried to get this nickname Gas or Coach McGaslin to catch on, but we might have to call him Ranch because he's dressing.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted me to ask.
No, I was just pausing for dramatic effect. But yeah, a lot of what you said is what I like about his background. I'm going to make a comparison here and allow me to talk through it before shutting off the podcast. But when Chris Beard was hired, a lot of ties to the region, not a lot of like Division I coaching experience. He had the 1 year at Little Rock, but before that, all over West Texas. He was at Angelo State. I think he was at Abilene Christian for 1 year. I think he was at McMurray. And of course, was an assistant at Texas Tech. And so just looking at McCaslin's past stops, he won at Midwestern State in Wichita Falls, which is actually now part of the Texas Tech system as of 2021, I believe. Denton, that's not, well, I mean, it's all West Texas, but, that's further, I guess, west of the Metroplex, northwest kind of part of the Metroplex. He was an assistant at Baylor, director of ops at Texas Tech, real early on in his career. I think that was actually his first job out of college. So anyway, just a guy, all those stops combined, you think he knows high school coaches, JUCO coaches, Division I coaches all across the state. And I think that's going to pay dividends because I think you're a program that still mostly needs to recruit regionally. I think you certainly can go out of state from time to time, but I think your bread and butter is going to be getting guys who play their high school ball, their AAU ball in Texas. And, there's no doubt he has connections. I don't know a ton about his ability to recruit at this level because he's never done it before as the head coach. I'm sure he was involved in recruiting at Baylor. But I'm sure he at least knows the landscape, knows the right people. If he can close deals, that remains to be seen. But if he comes across in front of players and their parents like he did with fans, I think he'll make a good impression. And he seemed to be like Joey in the sense that, he values relationships, and that's going to be something that comes naturally to him and is always going to be a point of emphasis for him. And I really like that because we've had coaches in the past. I think you could argue Mark Adams was like this. X's and O's brainiac. He knows the no-middle defense. He can draw it up. Cliff Kingsbury. All that guy wanted to do was watch film, and he's good at it. He's great at the X's and O's. Wasn't a great recruiter. Maybe didn't put together the best staffs at times. Maybe partly due to relationships. I don't think that'll be a problem with a guy like McCaslin. And so you also look at his resume. He's won everywhere he's been. And I liked this clip from the announcement of him being hired. And this is what also kind of reminded me of Beard, at least like on the court success. There was a clip of him coaching up, I think it was North Texas. And he said, I don't want to win 15 games. I want to win a championship. And I like that because my standard is always like, or the way I view the Texas Tech athletics department and the jobs is very different than how somebody like Jeff Goodman views it. Like
Right.
he'll pat you on the head and say, "Oh, that's a great job. Tech went 18-12 this year. That's so good for them. It's really hard to win in Lubbock." Kind of like a backhanded, condescending sort of deal. And so I don't want a coach that thinks that way. It's like, "Oh, well, this is a hard place to win. If we can make a bowl game, or if we can, just make the NCAA tournament, that's a good season." I don't think that's his mentality at all. I like the competitive edge. Chris Beard, in his opening press conference, he said, "We're going to play in the Final Four." And at the time, I was like, I love the ambition, but like, there's no way. Like, we're just not a program that can do that. And of course, he proved me wrong. And so I'm excited for that. I think that the standard is going to be high, the bar is going to be high, and based on his track record, I think McCasland has every intention of living up to that standard.
Yeah, and he closed his statement today saying, I planned this. I wanted to wait until Monday. I wanted to do it this Monday. There's a reason for that. I want to be, playing on this day very soon. And I think we can win national championships here. So there is that expectation.
And I was, as you know, and as our parlay picadors in the Discord server know, when it sort of leaked that he was the front runner, my first reaction was disappointment. Not in his resume, because I at that point wasn't as familiar with it as I am now, but just at like the splash factor. I thought we were going to swing for the fences, and maybe we did. And we kind of made a meme out of that. Make this guy say no, make that guy say no. Maybe they did call Billy Donovan or Sean Miller and made him say no, and like that's what you're supposed to do. And so my whole point with that was, over the last 5 or 6 years, you've gone to a national championship game, 2 Elite Eights, 3 Sweet 16s. You've won the Big 12. You've gone undefeated at home. All this great stuff. And I was hoping that would elevate you to the extent that you might be able to pry away somebody from a Power 6 job, like somebody who's already winning at, just making this up, Marquette or somewhere like that, that you can say, "Hey, you're winning, you've got it rolling, but you can do even better here. And this isn't that higher. You called up somebody from a lower level, which is fine. That's worked for you in the past." So that was my first kind of like initial reaction. I was like, "What?" McCasland is like the chalk hire. He's a guy that was on people's radar 2 years ago when Adams was hired. I think he was probably the front runner when the job opened up this time. And I was just hoping that they might, swing for the fences and get somebody that, again, outsider perspective, like Jeff Goodman thinks would never come to Lubbock. And McCasland is not that guy, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be a stellar hire because, like I said, I think the resume, head coaching wise, assistant coaching wise, is very comparable to a Chris Beard, who, love him or hate him now, I would guess most of our listeners lean toward the latter. He was really successful here. And so if McCasland comes close to duplicating that, this is going to be a really good hire.
A few notes on what you just said. Kirby did say today that 35 coaches were considered. 23 were talked to in some capacity. I think that's how he phrased it. He also said there were multiple Power 5 coaches that reached out to Texas Tech to inquire about the job. He also said he's turned down Big 12 and SEC jobs to wait for a good fit.
Interesting.
And I think he wanted to come to Texas Tech 2 years ago. I really do think he's been waiting for this job.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good fit for him and his family, I would think. He met his wife here, I believe. Apparently his grandfather played football at Texas Tech, and so even though it's not his alma mater, his playing career was at Baylor. I think there's some sense of I don't exactly know how to relate to that because my wife is a Red Raider, but I would imagine if she was, a UNT grad or U of H grad, I would sort of have some kind of sympathies for that. Especially if if I grew up hearing about my granddad played football at U of H or UNT or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, I hope there's, I think that just always makes it a little more special when there's some kind of emotional connection. I think that's part of why we wanted Joey. Like, his daughter went here. He's visited the campus. Like, he knows the deal here. He's not an outsider. And that's what Wells felt like to a lot of people. It's like, who's this guy that we just hired? Like, does he know? I mean, he can't pronounce tortilla. And so, fit is a big deal.
Yeah.
And you can have a good coach that's a bad fit. And a guy who doesn't come close to reaching the ceiling because he's not at the right program at the right time. And this doesn't feel like that at all.
So him and his wife went to rival high schools. He said they went to the prom together, but with different people in the same limo. So they had different dates, but they were at the prom together. And then they, I guess would go to each other's games through the Big 12. He'd come to Tech soccer games. She'd go to Baylor basketball games. And he said when he graduated from Baylor, he begged, I guess it was Coach Dickey at the time, to give him a job running camps in the summer and then to be the director of ops just so he could be closer to her. He thought it was just, or Dickey just thought he wanted to coach at Texas Tech, but he really just wanted to be closer to his eventual wife. His sister went to Texas Tech. His granddad went to Texas Tech, played football, and then his wife played soccer here. They presented her with the soccer jersey at the event. That was pretty cool.
That's a good touch. And again, I don't exactly know how to relate to that because my parents didn't go to college until like after I went to college. And I met my wife at Texas Tech. So I don't really know how split allegiances work, but like I know people that they went to Oklahoma State, but they were raised in the Texas Panhandle, and Texas Tech has always been number 2. And they're seriously, they're like me and you. If Texas Tech isn't playing Oklahoma State, they're rooting for the Red Raiders almost as hard as you and I are.
Yeah.
And so I hope that there is a legitimate draw there and that he valued this job, wanted this job more than a comparable Power 6 job.
I want to read the Norrance Odiase quote I mentioned earlier. So Norrance gets called up just out of the blue. Kirby's going down the line thanking everybody, and then he brings up Norrance to say a few words. And Norrance says, I'm trying to find somebody that's us, that understands who we are, the culture, the vision, the family, the community. Everything he is everything we need in a coach. Pretty strong words there from Norrance.
Yeah, and Norrance is a guy.
Here's a guy.
Here's a guy. You talk about a guy who's been through a coaching change before. He was recruited by Tubby Smith, and if I remember correctly, when he came on this podcast, he was very fond of Tubby Smith. Like viewed him as a mentor. Was pretty crushed when Tubby left for Memphis, and then I think developed a similar relationship with Chris Beard and Mark Adams because he was on that staff, not as the head coach. And he told us something about like when Beard left that he was like, yeah, and like we should just hire Adams. He's right there. He's in the building. And so more or less, he knows very well each of the last 3 coaches at Texas Tech. And I feel like he knows their pros and cons, can speak to that from certainly a unique perspective that you and I can't since we're not former players. Although I did ball with Norrance at the Rec in the summer of 2014.
Does he know that?
Do what?
Does he know that?
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't remember me specifically, but he remembers like our group.
That's fun.
That's also where I played dodgeball with Patrick Mahomes.
Of course.
Really good at dodgeball, by the way.
Oh, he is? Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, he can throw hard, believe it or not. So anyway, I was glad, and I think I said this when they announced the search committee, to have that, not just a player's perspective, but a very recent player who knew each of the last 3 head coaches and kind of understands the state of the program today, what the players are and are not looking for. And he's either legitimately fired up about it or a good salesman because he's been hyping this up on social media saying like he's one of us, he's a perfect fit. And all that seems to match what we see on paper. And so to have Norrance vouch for him like that, I think is a big deal.
Well, and I know he was involved in the process, but you do want ex-players to have ownership of the program, the current program, because that's how you keep guys involved. That's how you build long-term relationships, which I think is something that Norrance has been really good at. There was an interesting moment in the press conference after the actual event, and McCaslin's taking questions, and this guy from Midland asked him a question. He goes, "Oh, hey, Oscar." Like they knew each other from his time back in Midland 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, how many reporters have you known since? That just kind of speaks to the relationships that McCaslin builds. Now, I don't know if he covered him at UNT or if they've been in touch or he's seen him recently or whatever else, but it was just kind of a nod there. A couple of comments. The way he thanked literally everyone in his life says a lot, in my opinion. You don't do that, I wouldn't think, unless you feel like you've made it to the job. And then some comments on what Big 12 and SEC jobs he might have been turning down. This commenter, Luke, says Kansas State, Mississippi State, and Florida. Those have all been open lately.
Yeah, I think those are good guesses. I definitely remember his name being floated with the Kansas State job. That would also make sense since they hired another guy from the Scott Drew coaching tree. If they're looking for somebody, cut from that cloth, it would make sense that McCasland was maybe up there on their priority list with Jerome Tang. I want to say one more thing, and this is more theory, but I want to get your thoughts on it. The timing of this, he wins the NIT championship after it's been more or less rumored to be a done deal for like a full week.
Yeah.
And then the very next day, he's boarding the plane saying like, hey, get your guns up, let's go. There's no way, in my opinion, and again, I want your thoughts on this. There's no way his team like won the NIT championship. He took them back to the locker room and was like, hey guys, by the way, I've accepted the Texas Tech job. And in my opinion, they knew a week ago, and they played their semifinal game and their championship game knowing that they were not going to be playing for that coach anymore unless you're, Tyler Perry and want to transfer to Lubbock, just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks volumes, like the fact that they kind of knew it was over in that sense. Their season wasn't over, but that they were still motivated enough to play in a tournament that, frankly, I think would be hard to get guys motivated for. Like it's the runner-up tournament as is. And so I think there's some question. It's like when an SEC team makes a bowl game that they allegedly don't want to be at. So the fact that they probably knew our head coach is leaving and we're going to go out and be really freaking tough in the semifinal and the championship, especially the semifinal, the way they won that game in comeback fashion. I think they gave up 14 second half points. And to me, just speaks to his ability to win over a locker room, motivate guys, even in the face of adversity. And I think that'll translate well. Obviously, hopefully not to the same exact circumstance at Texas Tech, but if there's other locker room issues, losing streak, guy's girlfriend dumps him, 2 days before the Kansas game, hopefully he can work his magic. And again, going back to his ability to work relationships and everything like that. Unless I'm way off base here, I feel like his team knew and they still went out and played really hard for him. And I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty astute observation. It could have even been further back.
Yeah.
There was at least talks going on before the Oklahoma State game. And it speaks a lot to maybe not the Texas Tech administration as much as it does to just McCasland that he stayed, because he could have accepted the job and let Hodge coach out the NIT. But to stay and win the championship and then come, it does say something to his commitment and everything else to finish out his requirement, to finish out his, maybe not his full contract, but because, a lot of coaches just will check out and leave on a whim. But to stay committed. And again, this isn't football. In college football, you have to leave early. If McGuire had stayed, and I know it's not a head coach, but if McGuire had stayed at Baylor through the Big 12 championship game, it would have been a disaster. You have to leave immediately.
You wouldn't have half of your recruiting class from that year if he stays.
Yeah. Because the recruiting deadlines are so strict. Now, in basketball, there's no rush. Like, you might have missed on one transfer, but the signing class is already signed. The high school kids are already signed. You're working on next year's class. There's just not the same kind of timeline. So I do think it was good that he stayed. Would I have liked to have had it wrap up sooner? Probably, but that just lends to more talking, and that's what we do. We talk, so it didn't really affect us.
Yeah, and you're right. It was, I think, the day of the Oklahoma State game, maybe the night before, when like the public reports started saying like, he's emerged as a front runner, which to me is like the wink, wink, they're going to hire him type deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, if he kept his team focused for 3-4 games, knowing that was either implicit or perhaps explicit, again, I just think speaks to his ability to motivate guys, and you need that. I mean, you can't be missing hardly anything in the Big 12. Like, you can't be just good at X's and O's. You can't be just good at motivating guys. You can't be just good at recruiting. Like, there are programs I could point to that are good at or really good at one of those things, but not all three. And so I think the X's and O's, he at least has an identity. The defense is really good. Offense doesn't have as great of a track record, but he has an identity. He's very good at what he wants to do on defense. I think he's good at developing guys. Our friend Tech Hoops guy made the point that every year he's been at North Texas, he's had a guy that plays so well at that level that he's wanted in the transfer portal by high major type programs. And again, this year, I think his point guard Tyler Perry will be in that same category. Can he recruit at this level? Again, I don't think we'll really know until we know. But I think the relationship piece is there. I think the X's and O's are there, especially if he builds a staff that has kind of been rumored. And I don't know how far we want to go down that rabbit hole. But I think he checks a lot of boxes. And I think my only concern at this point is, can he recruit with the Mike Boyntons, Jerome Tang, now that he has an Elite Eight to recruit to? Can he recruit at that level? Scott Drew. Because I don't want to be at a major talent deficit in this conference. I think it's an uphill climb.
Yeah, Tyler Perry announcing about 30 minutes ago he's going to enter his name into the NBA draft process while keeping his college basketball eligibility. So you've seen that before. I would assume if he does come back, he will go to a higher level. Obviously, McCasland, there's a relationship there. And if you don't go to the NBA and you want to come back and play, why would you go anywhere else besides the Big 12? If you want to level up, if you want to play against the best, that seems to be a great position for you, especially in next year's Big 12. You also have Ousmane, who entered the portal, 6'10", averaged 11 and 6 this year from North Texas. So,
yeah, and I think sometimes people leap to conclusions during bowl season or the NCAA tournament when like one or two games can really swing things. But I think it's probably safe to say Conference USA didn't get the credit they deserve. Florida Atlantic makes the Final Four and almost makes it to the national championship. And then the NIT is the second and third place team from Conference USA, who I think that was the fourth time they played each other that season because they played in conference play, they played in the conference tournament, and then the NIT. So anyway, the Mountain West got a lot of credit for being like a legit multi-bid conference. Maybe it should have been Conference USA. And so I do put a lot of stock and value into that production this season in that conference because I don't think that conference was full of a bunch of slouches. I think they were playing pretty high level basketball there.
Yeah, Louisiana Tech was competitive with you for a large part of that game, and they kind of got hammered in the Conference USA down the stretch. So they have some dudes. And then obviously Charlotte won the CBI, which is what it is, but still another team went to another tournament and won it.
Right. Yeah, they were playing theoretically against their peers roughly.
Right.
Came out on top. And I'd be lying if I don't know how many teams play in the CBI.
No.
But you'd rather your conference win it than lose it.
If you're going to be in it, you might as well win it.
You play to win the game.
Thank you, Herm.
Hey, who has the better defense, Grant McCasland at North Texas or Barnett, Howard, and Williams?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I know who I'd want to call if I was in trouble.
My dogs are barking.
Well,
Usually it's Rob Dog who interrupts the ad read, but this time it was my dogs. Barnett, Howard, and Williams, one of the only law firms in the state of Texas certified for Title IX student litigation. They do family law, criminal defense, catastrophic injury. So if you, I don't know, if you get in a fight with a baseball player from the opposing team because he's acting a fool and need criminal defense, maybe you call Barnett, Howard, and Williams. They hope you never need them, but they're in your corner if you do. BHWlawfirm.com if you want to learn more. But all you really need to know is all three of them double Texas Tech grads. So should you ever need them, they're the best folks to have in your corner. And their defense is pretty dang good, just like Grant McCasland's at North Texas.
Yeah, and we've read that McCasland, saw that defense being put together from Mark Adams, and stole a lot of the ideology from him. So it's not going to look too different. Obviously, there are some differences, but that defensive competitiveness is what you're going to need. Now, he was not coy, but gave the coach speak kind of answer on who the staff was. I think his phrase was, "In the coming days, he'll announce some staff members." So I think a lot of it is probably pretty well in line. The North Texas roster page for the coaching staff only has Riley Hodge listed.
Ross
So
Hodge.
Ross, what'd I say?
You said Riley Hodge. Made me think of Riley Dodge.
That's probably what I was thinking
Whose
of.
dad, Todd Dodge, coached at UNT.
Right. Full circle there.
Yeah.
But you have Ross Hodge listed. So I think a lot of people are speculating that some of those guys will come here. I don't want a full staff from North Texas. Nothing against those guys. I'm sure they work really well together, but that feels Matt Wellesley to me, that you would just bring a full Conference USA staff.
Let's just address the elephant in the room. One of the names that's been rumored somewhat publicly, this isn't our scoop or anything. We're not telling you that like sources are telling us this or anything. Ben McCollum, the head coach at Division II, Northwest Missouri State University. You might be thinking, Division II, what's the big deal? Google this guy. There's been an athletic article written about him, which pretty well outlines that he and McCasland are good friends and have had conversations about the offensive system that McCollum runs. I think McCollum's offense would pair very well with McCasland's defense. It's a methodical, I don't want to say slow paced, but it's like a work for your shot. Let's focus on efficiency rather than tempo kind of offense. And I have a really good meme lined up if you do hire Ben McCollum. I'm just going to read a little bit from his Wikipedia page. And again, this is Division II, but he's coaching against his peers, against programs with comparable resources, comparable talent, you would think.
Only quality sources here on the program.
Yeah. His record is 365 wins and 85 losses. That's an 81% win rate.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Playing career, North Iowa area community college, and then Northwest Missouri State. So he's actually coaching his alma mater. Had some assistant roles, all that. He becomes the head coach at Northwest Missouri State back in 2009. So he's been there for 14 years. Here's what he did. So he gets there, and it takes a couple years to build it up. He goes 12-15. Then he goes 10-16. You're going, okay, what's the big deal here? Here's what he did after this. He wins 22 games, tied for first in the conference. A little bit of a setback the next year, 21 wins, 6th place in the conference. And then starting in 2013, here's how many games he's won every year. 24, 25, 27, 35, 27, 38-0, 31-1 in a COVID season, 28-2, 34-5, 31. Here's where his team finished in the conference all of these years. Tied for first, tied for first. Here's what he did in the postseason. Sweet 16, Sweet 16, Sweet 16, national champ, first round, national champ, COVID season canceled, but they were 31-1. Well, let's call it a Final Four. National champ, second round. He's basically like even odds every year. Is his team going to win the national championship or not? I mean, this is unreal. And so will it translate to Division I? Will it translate to Power 6? I don't know. I would love to find out.
Yeah. When they call his offense the 12 pass offense, I mean, it's like the motion. It's like what you've been running, but what we've been begging for: ball movement and aggressiveness, finding a shot, not taking open shots, and not just standing there and dribbling until you're ready to shoot.
Well, this was another concern I had about McCasland was I think you saw some of this toward the end of Mark Adams' tenure was I don't know if you can recruit the type of offensive players, the type of offensive skill sets you want on your roster if you're playing such hideous offense. And so when I was looking at McCaslin's like Ken Palm, I was like, is anybody who can shoot and, score off the dribble, create their own shot, are they going to want to play in this offense? But if you're, if you can tell Ben McCollum's offense, say like, hey, we get guys open, you're going to get good looks, high percentage shots. We're going to move the ball. Everybody's going to touch it. Everybody's going to score. Well, I think you can recruit to that, especially if you're doing it right. So that would mitigate maybe my top concern about the McCaslin hire.
Yeah, and a lot of the drawback when Chris Beard got here was, yeah, he spent 10 years here as an assistant or whatever it was, but then he'd never been anywhere more than a year or two. And so there was a lot of movement. And when he got here, it was like, well, he's going to leave, right? It's just a matter of time before when. Now, we didn't expect him to leave how he left and after, what he built. But, McCaslin's been here for 6 years at UNT. McCollum, you said 14 years at his current stop. So there's some, some loyalty there that you just didn't find.
Well, and of course, Baylor was McCaslin's alma mater. Almost said McCollum. And if we have a McGuire, a McCaslin, and a McCollum, I'm going to just do that over the next few years. But
oh, yeah.
Of course, Baylor was McCaslin's alma mater, but when he was an assistant there, I think it was 2011 to 2016. So, he stayed 6 full seasons. So, yeah, I think he would, especially if he was picky about this job and turned down others, I think he's coming to build something over the at least somewhat long term. And, hey, if he does so well 5 or 6 years from now that he gets poached, then, probably you could point to, hey, our last 4 coaches have won Conference Coach of the Year. Our last 3 would have been to the Sweet 16, assuming McCaslin takes you there. And I don't think anybody would really want to hire him away that badly if he isn't making a run like that. So, it's kind of one of those things like, yeah, you don't want to be a stepping stone job, but if you get – would you rather have one guy stay for 15 years who doesn't reach the heights that Beard did, or have 3 guys do what Beard did to you, 5 years apiece, and then they bounce for a quote-unquote better job? It's like, well, I want the Final Four banner. I'm not saying I love that, how Chris Beard left and everything, but if McCaslin takes you to 2 Elite Eights and wins you a Big 12 and then leaves, I'd be like, okay, I guess thanks for your time, and we can probably hire somebody as good as you again and just do it all over. So I don't worry about that too much.
No, and he just got here, so let's focus on that.
Yeah, that's what people are like. Well, he's just gonna go to Baylor when Scott Drew leaves, just like Beard's like. Well, worry about that in 15 years when Scott Drew is ready to retire. Like, he's in his 50s, like early 50s.
Is he?
I think he's like 52. You want me to Wikipedia it?
I would have said closer to 58.
I don't know.
Let's see.
Either way, you've got Jim Boeheim coach until he's 91.
Yeah. Oh, wow. He's 52.
Oh, hey.
He's been there 20 years?
Close to, yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah, because Dave Bliss, I think, got fired in the early 2000s.
Aaron says he just went yard with his creative player in the MLB The Show. Does he look like Nolan Hester?
That was hilarious. That's a good segue to baseball. So Rob and I had the fortune of going to all 3 games, and I think it was Sunday, game 3. You were like, if I make a creative player or a my player in a baseball game, he looks like Nolan Hester. Like, he's got a mullet, a stash, shades.
Yeah.
And then that TCU fan at some point was like, this is Lubbock in a picture. And it's a picture of Nolan Hester during his AB. He's wearing like the huge shades. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. Because that was a perfect picture for what you were already describing. I think the TCU fan meant it as like an insult. I thought he looked awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway.
All right, let's get into baseball. We'll start on Friday. First of all, it's a pleasure to spend 13 hours with you. Plus, Rahinho, we probably spent 16 hours together this weekend. That was enough for me, right? I was
going to say it. At least 12 or 13 of those hours were really good.
Yeah. No, it was a good time, and we met a lot of people. They see our hats, like we said earlier, and they say, "Oh, you're the Gauchos." So it's fun seeing you guys out there. If y'all see us in the wild, come say hi. It's always fun to meet people who listen or follow along on Twitter or hate us on Twitter. For my tweets, not Kyle's. But it was a fun 3 games at the ballpark, especially Friday. because Texas Tech is down pretty much the whole time until the 7th inning, I think, when you score 9. And that was the funnest trash talking we did.
Yeah.
Heckling, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it was one of those things I was like, hey, I made the trip to Lubbock for the weekend. I'm going to have a good time, even if you lose a baseball game. And so, it was nothing malicious. We're like making fun of their first base coach for wearing the guy's elbow pads. Like if they had got a base runner, they would give their elbow pad or elbow guard to the first base coach. And with as many base runners as they had, he had like both elbows, one on an ankle. And so anyway, it was like lighthearted stuff. I didn't think we were going to win that game.
No.
Or like if their pitcher would open up the count with a ball, we'd like taunt him like, oh, ball one. And it was like, hey, we're talking a lot of crap for being down like 5 runs. But you come back and win. You fell down 8-0 in the first 2 innings. They put up a 3 spot, then a 6 spot. And I think it's really fair and necessary to acknowledge how big of a factor the wind was, because there were balls that came off the bat, and I was like, okay, sweet, like can of corn. This is like a shallow fly ball to left field. And then you're like, oh, he's still running. Like, oh, he's at the warning track. Oh, that's 30 feet over the fence.
Yeah.
And so it looks like both teams had an insane offensive output, and they put the barrel on the ball, but there was straight up homer probably would have been pretty easy outs under normal weather conditions. I think that inflated the score for both teams. And then also at one point their pitcher just walks in like 11 straight runs. And I guess their coaching staff thought that was better than making a pitching change. So strange game, a lot of errors, 36 combined runs. But I'll say this, Rob, I feel a little bit vindicated because there's a lot of whining and just straight up crying after Texas Tech loses a baseball game or a baseball series, as if you don't play 61 of these and you're bound to drop some, especially on the road versus good teams. And it was almost as if our commentary on the team's toughness and ability to claw back into games, even if they fell short, wasn't a moral victory, but was in fact an accurate observation that you're not going to always come back and win every time you fall behind, but you did on Friday. And I would rather have a team that is tough like that and is capable of doing that rather than one that pouts and cries and lets a tough loss beat them twice. So target emoji on our take going back to Austin. Not easy to have that take when you get swept. I think it was the correct take, and it manifested itself on Friday and maybe to a lesser extent on Sunday, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, I want to read this second inning, or at least the first 8 runs for TCU on Friday. This is Brendan Girton. You really need Brendan Girton to be good. First inning, Fontenelle homered to the left side, 2 RBIs. Taylor scores, and that was a wind aided, but a bomb. And then you have a single that scores 2 runs. You have a throwing error that scores a run. You have a home run who has 2 RBIs. You have another home run, Fontenelle again, to center field. That's 8 runs. You're down 8-0 heading to the bottom of the second.
I almost turned to you when it was 8-0 and said we're going to win this game, but I was like, maybe not. But I probably should have been more phased than I was, but I was like, dude, the wind is carrying and we're good in this ballpark. I was like, we're going to score. I don't know if we're going to score enough, but we're going to get, 8 of our own. I don't know if we'll score enough to win. And eventually you did. And like you said, I'm not saying like all the TCU runs were because of the wind, because you certainly had some, but you also have Hudson White just blasting it right on the screws for I think they said 444 feet. Like that's getting out no matter what the wind is doing. And then, like a lot of it in the 7th inning when the wheels really just fell off for TCU was they refused to make a pitching change. The guy was walking, hitting guys, and you didn't really even have to swing the bat or put it in play. I think most of those runs, if not all of them, that inning, I think it was a 6 spot. Might have been more than that. But 9. I think they all came with 2 outs. Maybe 6 came with 2 outs. I don't remember, but a lot of it was with 2 outs, if not all of it. And so I know they feel like they let one get away there, and it's probably fair for them to think that. But they were leaning into a strategy saying we think this pitcher can get out of it. and we'll save some pitching for later in the weekend. And they, kind of went all in on that hand, and it didn't work out for them. And they have to reap the consequences of that.
Yeah, so you score 2 in the bottom of the second, 3 in the bottom of the third. They score 1 run in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth. They score 4 in the seventh. So at that point, it's 16-11. And when you score 4 in the bottom of the sixth, I'm really thinking, all right, this is Texas Tech's game. You didn't get the lead, but you are right there. And then they put another 4 spot up, and it's like, okay, this is, you fought hard. It was another one of those, all right, well, you competed. And then in the bottom of the seventh, it is Gage Harrelson, fielder's choice, that scores a run. Woodcox walked in a run. White walked in a run. Coleman got hit by pitch. That's a run. Lopez singles. That's a couple of runs. Hester doubles down the left field line. That's a couple of runs. And then Harrelson singles to center field, and that's a couple of runs. So that's 9 runs. And you're right, that pitcher was just giving up.
Well, and their coaching staff, rather than bringing in a guy to make 1 out, was like, hey, we're willing to give up 1 run, 2 runs, 3 runs to save some pitching. And by the time they decided to make a change, it was 17-16. And it's like, this poor guy is out there just getting rocked or just not finding the plate. I thought that was a weird call. And like, I know TCU fans were unhappy with it. They deserve to be. I'm sure if he could do it over, Sarloos might call it a little bit differently. But again, hey, coaching is part of the game. And if you get out coached and it results in an L, counts just the same.
Yeah, that has to be coaching indifference, right? Or at least malpractice to lose that game on Friday night. And you had 5 errors. Texas Tech had 5 errors.
Yeah.
And they did not call all of the errors I thought they should have called on TCU, but they had 2. And I think the double from Hester was a fly ball that they just missed. Like they missed Cash's on the walk-off in Lubbock against Oklahoma State.
They scored in every frame until the 8th inning when Brandon Beckel came in. And we'll get to talk about him more later in the weekend. But yeah, almost anybody that you threw either had pitching issues or the defense behind them wasn't playing great. You alluded to the several errors. And we can maybe get into this when we go to broader thoughts at the end of the series, but you need to find some pitching besides Brandon Beckel. He's amazing, but he can't throw 20 innings for you every weekend. Yeah. There might be some weekends where he doesn't even get to throw 4 innings for you. So you need to find some starting pitching specifically. Maybe that's a good segue to Saturday's game. Just to tie a bow on Friday, completely weird, not normal baseball game. Just an insane amount of offense. Reminded me of the 2015 football game against TCU, except you came out on the right side this one. Nobody was going to pitch that well, play very good defense. The ball was leaving the park like crazy, and thankfully you won a shootout. I don't love playing that style. I would like to shore up some pitching and defense, but hey, they count all the same in the win column, so you'll take it, I guess.
Yeah, I want to mention Ethan Coombs. He pitched 2 innings against Oklahoma State, had 5 strikeouts. He pitched 2 innings against Texas, had 4 strikeouts, gave up a double, hit a batter, no walks. He walked 2 against Oklahoma State. And then against TCU, this is just his Big 12 games. And then against TCU, he came in, walked 2, struck out 2, and got you to Beckel. He pitched 2/3 of an inning, got 2 outs. A little walking issue there, but I think he's been an underrated arm lately, at least in Big 12 play, to get you an inning or 2 in a series.
Yeah, and we saw, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, we saw Derek Bridges warming up on Sunday. Ultimately was not used, but I think having him back, that was kind of his role last year, was to get you out of the jam, get you 2/3 of an inning or 1 inning. you're just going to need to piece together a lot of games like that. I mean, it doesn't appear you have a bunch of starters just ready to go 6 innings and then turn it over the bullpen. So it's gonna be a lot of times where your starter goes 3 2/3, 4 1/3, and then you're just gonna have to piece together some arms for the final half of the game. And so it's good to see Bridges healthy and hopefully available moving forward. Having a guy like Coombs pitch like he has recently, you're going to need every arm you can find.
So Beckel Friday night, 5 strikeouts, 2 innings. They'd scored in every inning before Beckel came in. They did not score on Beckel either inning. Again, 2 full innings, 5 strikeouts, 1 foul out or fly out. Sorry. 7 batters faced. He gave up 1 hit.
Do you remember what I said to those TCU fans sitting a couple rows in front of us when he was jogging in from the bullpen?
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
I said, boys, that might as well be Mariano Rivera. Good game. And I said it again on Sunday, and you were like, dude, don't jinx it. But it was like,
yeah,
he's given up 1 earned run in, I think, 18 innings pitched now. I mean, he's unreal. And I wish this was the 1920s and he could throw 150 pitches Friday and then do it again Saturday and Sunday. But it really does feel like if you can just hang on through the 7th and send him out in the 8th for a 2-inning save, it's like, hey, guys, just get us to the 8th and then, like, I'll take care of you kind of thing. So that is like, it's such a strange feeling when TCU scored in every frame and then you see him jogging in from the bullpen, you're like, okay, yeah, game over. They're not scoring again. Nobody in their right mind would typically think that when the other team has 16 runs already, but that's how I feel about Beckel, and he just keeps proving me right. Like the next time he gives up another run, which will happen at some point this season, I'm going to be like totally shocked, which it happens in baseball. Like the other team scores, but if anybody like actually lines one up and hits one out of the park, and I might be like, what? How is that even possible?
All right, so let's go to Saturday. Mason, let's start with their starter, Cole Klecker.
Well, before the game on Saturday,
yes,
you and I and a couple of the boys drove out to Rahino Barbecue. A couple first-timers, which that's always a pleasure, Rob, when you get to enjoy Rahino with somebody who's having it for the first time and they realize that it is as advertised. Beautiful weather out on their kind of patio area. They had cornhole set up, all that good stuff. And they had a new menu item I hadn't noticed before, the Texas Trinity. So we got to sample some brisket, some ribs, some sausage, 2 sides. The lads went with the creamed corn, which they reported back to me was elite. So anyway, it's that time of year where the weather's getting nice. If you can make it out there on a Saturday before a 2 p.m. first pitch, I thought our Saturday was pretty damn good. So go see our friends over at Rahino Barbecue. You can order ahead, RahinoBBQ.com, to ensure your order is there when you arrive. Give them a follow on social at Rahino BBQ.
Yeah, we left at 10:45. Get there around 11:30, maybe a little sooner than that. Got our food, headed back right to the game, and that's a Saturday afternoon for you.
It's perfect.
All right, so Cole Klecker, who you were looking at his stats during the game, I was going to say basically, but you for sure gave him his worst start of the year. He threw 5 2/3, gave up 6 earned, 3 walks. He only had 2 strikeouts. He hit 2 batters in 103 pitches.
Yeah, his worst outing was 3 total runs surrendered, but only 2 of those were earned. So he's a guy that, pretty straightforward. Like, you put him out there for 5 or 6 innings, the other team might score 2 or 3 runs, and as long as your bats are doing something, like, you're gonna have a chance to win the game. And so you hit him better than anybody has to this point this season, which is encouraging. You, of course, don't wind up winning the game, but there was a moment, I can't remember if it was the 3rd or the 4th inning, but it was, you're kind of like working through the second time through the lineup, and you had him on the ropes. I think the bases were loaded with 1 out, and I think so when Green was at bat, there was a wild pitch that scored 1 run. So then Green was at bat with runners on 2nd and 3rd. I don't remember how Green got out, but he wasn't able to advance any of the runners. And then same deal with Gavin Cash. Basically, your 2 best bats with 3 guys on base and then 2 guys on base. And at that point, I felt like you could have gotten him out of the game with an extra base hit from either one of those guys. And you could have said, like, we totally knocked him out way earlier than he has to any point this season. And just kind of a missed opportunity. You wind up losing the game by 3 runs. And so certainly would have been a tighter game had you been able to capitalize on either one of those ABs. So that felt like a missed opportunity. You wind up losing the game 10-7. Like you alluded to, Mason Molina struggled. I mean, I say that, but so the first batter, if you're just looking at the box score, it's a leadoff home run. And I mean, he cranked it. Like he got all of it. But it was an 0-2 count.
Right.
And so, Molina's ahead. He's locating his pitches. And then for some reason gives him something obviously pretty juicy to hit with the count 0-2. And it's like, what are we doing that for? And it felt like that happened all day Saturday when it was Molina and the relievers. You're ahead 0-2, you're ahead 1-2, and you serve up something fat and they, hit it out of the park or extra bases. And it was like, why are we doing this? Like, let's pitch around them a little bit, make them swing at some junk. So that was frustrating. It felt like either TCU was doing a brilliant job at the plate or you were just giving them way too good of pitches to hit with the count where it stood many times.
Yeah, and it was a little frustrating because especially on Saturday, and I don't remember if it was the TV crew or the radio crew said the strike zone the size of a softball.
Yeah.
There were several at-bats where Texas Tech had guys, down 2-2 or even worse, 2-0 or whatever, way in front of them, like you're saying. And you throw a strike pitch and it's a ball. You throw the strikeout pitch and they don't call it. And then you have to stand up there on the mound and respond. And when that happens as a batter, you're betting with house money at that point. So you're in your zone as a batter, and the pitcher has to battle back from that. I thought it did hurt Molina a little bit, and it hurt some of the relievers as well. Now, again, that moment you're talking about with bases loaded, Austin Green has an infield fly. I think he popped it up back to the pitcher. And then I think in the Cash at bat, it was a wild pitch or either way, one of the two.
Yeah.
And then Cash unassisted to first base. He just rolled over on one. So you had opportunities, but that's 2 good teams, and TC just beat you on Saturday.
I think that's fair. It did seem coincidental in a bad way. Like when you did feel like there was a missed strike 3 call at the plate, and then TCU inevitably turns it into an RBI. You're like, okay, the ump kind of cost us one there. And I know TCU has their gripes about umpiring, which I think that sort of reached a crescendo on Sunday. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
If both squads are pretty unhappy with the umpiring, probably means the umpiring isn't that great. I didn't think there was a ton that was atrocious in terms of balls and strikes, safe and out. It was just kind of like the way they managed the game sometimes, again, mostly on Sunday. But it was like, yeah, okay, he struck him out there, but instead they called it a ball. Now it's 1-2 or 2-2. And then the next pitch he cranks down the right field line or whatever and, scores a run. So that was annoying, but it's how baseball goes sometimes. And you didn't capitalize when you had similar opportunities. I think that pretty much sums up Saturday. Molina is a guy who that was really his first bad start. He lost the Texas start, but if you look at his stat line, it was a decent enough outing, especially versus a team that good on the road. So I'm not worried about him yet, but it did dawn on me Saturday, okay, if he's struggling now and you don't even have one reliable starting pitcher, that's a problem. Because you can maybe piece together some starts on Friday and Sunday and work the bullpen really hard if Saturday is always going to be solid. And again, I'm not saying that it's not and that this is the beginning of a pattern. But if he does continue struggling and you're not confident in any of your 3 weekend starters, that's a real deficiency that really limits your ceiling going forward.
Yeah, Molina's earned runs. He gave up 2 in a start against Western Illinois, 3 in a start against Michigan, 3 in a start against Oklahoma State, 2 in a start against Texas, 7 in the start against TCU. He's lost 3 straight because you've lost every Saturday game in the Big 12 so far.
Yeah. But with this lineup, like if he's given up 2 or 3 runs in 5 or 6 innings,
Right.
I'll take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday or Saturday, as it were. Um, and so I feel like those losses don't really reflect that he pitched pretty solid in those outings against Oklahoma State and Texas, which is why I say this is the first one where you really felt like they got the better of him and he didn't really put Texas Tech in a position to win. So he's been good enough at the end of last season and through the first half of this season. I'm not worried about it. TCU clearly has good bats throughout the lineup. And so hoping that was a fluke and that he gets it right and he can be just as reliable as we've come to expect from him down the stretch here. If he's not, that's a huge problem for you.
Yeah, and I think your main gripe with both Girton and Molina, and then we can move on to Sunday, they just have to pitch more innings. They have to find a way to locate command in the zone and pitch more innings. You have to get 5. You have to get 5 out of both of those guys moving forward. And if it's Girton or if it's somebody else, and then he's coming in relief, whatever it is, you have to have Mason Molina give you 5 or 6 on a weekend.
Got a stat. I forgot to bring this up when we were talking Friday. Brendan Girton, unfortunately, right now trending in the wrong direction. His first 4 appearances, which the first one, if you recall, was long relief, but he was the de facto starter against Gonzaga. Robinson, I think, only went 1 inning and change, and then Girton came in and did 6 innings. But his first 4 appearances, so that long relief and then 3 starts, 18 and a third innings pitched, surrendered 12 hits, surrendered 6 earned runs. So that's an ERA like hovering right at 3, more or less. Now, one of those starts was against Western Illinois. Now we're in Big 12 play, so it's not quite an apples to apples kind of deal. But his last 3 appearances, 13 and a third innings pitched, 18 hits surrendered, 11 earned runs. So ERA hovering more like 7 or 8, just doing some quick math. I mean, he was decent against UT. I don't think you lost because of starting pitching that game. But again, same deal. If you can't rely on him, then you start wondering, okay, do we need to switch something up like you did on Sunday, starting Trendon Parrish? Is he better just in relief? And like if and when Bo Blessey comes back, assuming he's not just going to come back and throw 6 innings every night,
right,
or every start, like could Blessey be the opener, get through the lineup once, and then turn it over to Girton for 5 innings? If he's better in that kind of role, more comfortable in that kind of role, maybe that's your solution on Friday. You go Blessey Girton as your kind of combo starter. If you can rely on Molina Saturday, if you get what you got out of Parrish on Sunday, maybe that more or less solves your pitching, at least to the extent that you can rely on your hitting to win some games. I don't know if any of that is in the cards. You're clearly tinkering with stuff, though, and if Girton keeps trending in this direction, you're going to need to figure something out on Friday night.
Yes, and I think you'll probably see some kind of tinkering in the rotation before you really get too much further into Big 12 play. You kind of have not an off week, but out of the conference week this weekend with ACU and North Dakota State. Final thought on Saturday, Hudson White needs to DH on Saturday. I understand giving him a day off from behind the plate. And I get saving a guy who's catching a bunch of innings, but he's one of your best 9 hitters. And to just not have him out there on Saturdays, I feel like hurts the team. Now, Tim Tatlock's much smarter than I am. Much smarter than I am. But that just seems obvious to me.
Yeah, I mean, the way you phrased it when we were at the game on Saturday, you're like, is Hudson White one of your 9 best players? And I said, yeah, easily. You're so lefty heavy in the lineup to have a right-handed bat like his, you need it in the lineup. And like you said, if he needs a break from catching, that's fine. If he needs to rest completely, then do it in the midweek. Or you could even throw him at second base, have Green DH. Because the thing about Hudson White is if you needed to sub, pinch hit, whatever, pinch run, he can play almost anywhere. He's played first, he's played second, he can catch. I bet you could put him at a couple other spots and he would do just fine for himself. So you need his bat in the lineup some form or fashion on Saturday, point blank. I mean, he's your best right-handed DH option if Maxey is catching. And again, I think you could even put him in the infield and let Austin Green DH or something. He's a switch hitter, so he's kind of immune to other teams pitching lefty versus lefty, righty on righty, whatever. I'm 100% with you on that. He needs to play every day, at least on the weekend. If he needs to rest, it needs to be on Tuesdays.
All right. Do you want to preface anything before we get into Sunday, or do you just want to jump in?
I'll preface a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think I know where this is going. One player in particular on TCU's roster, number 11, was being a provocateur, which he has every right to be. There's guys like this in every sport. Grayson Allen, Lance Stevenson, whoever you can think of. They like to chirp. They like to engage with the fans. They like to showboat. Deion Sanders in football. Again, if that's your prerogative, so be it. Like, I think it's unwise to do it if you're not very good at the sport you're playing, because you're just going to get showed up more often than not. But he was not making himself out to be a very sympathetic figure. He was, a lot of this, initiating it unnecessary multiple times. Like, he basically walks the base paths on a home run. He fouls one off deep into the outfield, so he's already rounded first and just walks as slow as can be right across the diamond. And here's what aggravated me about it, Rob, is if we're going to do pace of play stuff and there's a pitch clock and you've got to be in the batter's box on a certain clock, then let's enforce some pace of play stuff. And it can't take the manager 3 minutes to walk out to the mound for a mound visit. And it can't take a guy 5 minutes to get back in the box after a foul ball. If we're going to hurry up the game, then let's do it. And that's not an unreasonable, hey, just jog. If you jog, everyone's happy. You don't have to sprint back to the base or anything like that. So he's doing it on purpose. He's getting a rise out of the fans. That was happening Friday, Saturday. I didn't see this. He was accused of grabbing his junk. I saw him stick out his tongue at the fans. Saw him throw deuces to some Tech players. Saw him talking to fans. And I'll say one more thing before we get into Sunday. Tell me if you agree. Players, coaches, and athletic department personnel are held to a higher standard than fans. Because any Joe Blow can go watch the game and be a jerk. But if you're wearing your school's logo on your chest or you're paid by the university, you're kind of held to a little bit higher standard of decorum, class, sportsmanship, whatever you want to call it. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. That's, I think, all I wanted to preface Sunday with.
All right. So with that backdrop, the first inning, Trenton Parrish gives up 3 runs on 2 hits, an error, and they left 2 on. And at this point in the game, you and I are looking at each other like, okay, it's Sunday again. Just like last year, you're going to fall apart. You don't have enough pitching. You don't have any starters. This is going to be a frustrating experience. And then here's what TCU does in the next several innings with Trenton Parrish on the mound. They leave 2 on, no runs. They leave 2 on, no runs. They leave 1 on, no runs. And then they go 3 up, 3 down. So to battle back, Trenton Parrish, really good battling from him. And there was a moment where there's a hit by pitch, and it is number 11. The crowd kind of cheers.
Can I make a clarifying point on that?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm going to back up just to add some more context. On Friday night, some TCU buddies of ours who we went on their podcasts, or they came on our podcast, maybe both. They started tweeting us. They're like, hey, if Tech fans are going to do the A&M Ball 5 chant, at least do it right. And I was like, what are you talking about?
We didn't hear it.
Did not hear it.
Not on Friday.
But I went back and watched the broadcast, and you can hear it. And so wherever the mics were positioned, I guess was close to the person or small crowd doing that. But on our half of the stadium, I didn't know people were even doing that. And so when they were tweeting at us about that, I was like, oh, I guess we have a few fans that are trying to do the Ball 5 chant, but it was not something that you could hear throughout the stadium. So anyway, having said that, that leads me to believe that, okay, maybe stuff is being picked up on the broadcast that is not very audible in the stadium.
Yeah, we're down the right field line, and I think a lot of that happens in the student section on the third base side.
Fair.
So that is on the opposite side, and I think that's where the the TV well and the cameras and the mics and all that is back there.
So Saturday, number 11 gets hit with an 82-mile-an-hour off-speed pitch on a 2-2 count during what I think at the time was a one-run game of a conference rubber match. So not a spot where you would typically go for a revenge plunk and put a guy on base. When it happened, I did not hear any cheers or claps, and so I was a little bit surprised to go to Twitter and see all their fans saying that Tech fans are garbage human beings. They're the scum of the earth. They went wild, and the entire stadium erupted when he was hit in the head. So I went back and watched the broadcast, see like, okay, what? Because at the time I was thinking I'm going to pull this up and like debunk this, that there's nobody clapping or cheering.
Right.
And what I saw on the broadcast is he gets plunked in the back of the helmet, thankfully a protected area, again with an off-speed 82-mile-an-hour pitch. And once it's clear that he's fine, and he's even almost like smiling about it,
Maybe
there's a
pop right
snap.
back up.
Yeah, I don't think he fell down.
Yeah.
I think he got hit standing up, and it was clear pretty quickly that he was fine, which is good because anytime a guy gets hit in the head, it's scary. Once it was clear a few seconds later that he was fine, there's a smattering of sarcastic cheers and applause. Is that like the best look? No. Was it widespread enough for me to hear it being present in the stadium? No. And so I think it may have been another case of like the people doing it happened to be situated closer to the mics that are being picked up on the broadcasts. Because I literally didn't. I don't know if you picked up on it on Saturday, Sunday when that happened or not. I didn't. I had to go back to the broadcast to hear any of it.
Well, it was more of a like, okay, take your bag. Like you got hit, go on. It was that kind of stuff because that's how it was the whole weekend.
That's his whole shtick. He's trolling by not moving. Had he been hit like in the face and been like writhing on the ground, nobody would have been clapping or cheering. It was only because it was clear that he was fine that you get that sarcastic. And again, like, should you have done that? No. But also, if you're going to act like a turd all weekend, like, is this the first guy who's been beaned after showing somebody up? Like, and I don't want to go into the whole debate about unwritten rules in baseball. And
but again, it was 3-2. You weren't hitting him on purpose.
It wasn't even an intentional pitch. So like the entire conversation is moot, but
it was like, the first batter of the inning.
And I'm going to back up too. This is the university that just in the past year, their athletic director has gone on Twitter to chirp at Texas Tech fans and the university as a whole, the athletic department as a whole. Their football coaching staff has done the same. Just publicly talk trash about West Texas, about Texas Tech. I'll get to this later, but that type of behavior has pretty much permeated the fan base, especially as good of a season as they had in football.
Oh, yeah.
It emboldened them to be cocky, arrogant, talk a lot of crap. Now, every single quarterback who faced TCU got injured, and their fans will tell you it had absolutely nothing to do with dirty play or cheap shots. It was just their team was so tough and strong that the weak teams they were lining up against just couldn't handle the brute force that TCU was bringing. Their basketball coach has been known to escalate tensions during games. He gets their student section going. He just not a very likable figure. He's out on the court. He sprained a Texas Tech player's ankle. His players who are on the bench in street clothes have come onto the court against Texas Tech to taunt players that are actually playing in the game. Their baseball coach tried to get ejected about 4 times before the umpire obliged him. All the players walk around the base paths. This player in particular talks shit to the fans. And so you do all this, and your whole mantra, your whole identity as a university and as a fan base is like, well, we're so much better than everybody. We're going to flap our gums at any opportunity we get. Everybody else is a poverty program. We're just so good. We stand our AD who talks crap to other schools' fan bases. And then the minute somebody gives it back, you lose a baseball series 2-1. And then it's like, oh, well, we're going to go throw a pity party on Twitter because your fans weren't nice enough to us.
Yeah.
And the umpire was so mean that he ejected our head coach.
I am a strong, strong proponent of if you dish it out, you have to be able to take it.
They are the opposite of that. They
They are the
love to dish it out, and they cannot take it. And it's like, but this is why you should be careful when things are going well. Like, I know fans tend to be delusional. Like, when you're in the middle of your best football season ever, you have to understand that, like, it's not always going to be that way.
Yeah.
And I know they're having an insane run in basketball. They've won 3 tournament games since the end of segregation in the United States. And so that gives them apparently a huge leg to stand on when it comes to basketball smack talk. I was like, well, eventually you're going to lose in something. And you lost in baseball this weekend. And all your fans wanted to do afterwards was cry about it.
And by the way, this is coming from a pair of gentlemen who love to trash talk. And
Well,
Kyle, come on. Come on.
What did we say before this series? That was trash talk?
Bantering, what do you want to call it? What do we say?
I don't think we said anything to the effect of the place you live is a dump. We're gonna
That's
destroy. We're gonna destroy your poverty program. Your fans are the scum of the earth. We didn't say any of that to them, did we?
No, I don't think we ever have called other human beings garbage, and humans in air quotes, because one of their players was a jerk the whole time, and some fans might have cheered him on his way to first base after getting hit to lead off an inning when they're up in the game. And then it escalated in the same inning where he gets off third base on a pitch hit back to the pitcher, a hit back to the pitcher, and the pitcher tags him out too hard, I guess, and screams in celebration, and then runs back to the mound very quickly. And their coach jumps out of the dugout and tries to get our pitcher thrown out, and there's warnings abound.
If you're going to do that much chest pounding, you cannot cry like that after losing a baseball series on the road 2-1.
Have good base running.
Give me a break.
When that happened the night before, there was the dugouts were loaded, warned, because Davis got way off third base on a pitch hit in the infield. There was an out, and there was 2 outs in the inning, so it ended the inning. And then he's chirping the pitcher. The pitcher chirps back, and Sarlus runs out like it's our pitcher, and then our guy gets warned, and I don't know that everyone got warned, but it's just ridiculous.
What's funny about that too, again, I'm talking about the behavior of TCU's athletic director, their football coach, all players, and they're griping about fans, which any Joe Blow can show up to the game and trash talk. It's just hilarious to me that they got their feelings hurt, that our fans weren't nice enough to them after how their entire university has treated our fan base, our university, for the last year. It's hilarious to me. I forgot the other. Oh, as far as guys getting beaned on Sunday, it started with a fastball at Austin Green. He was the first player to get hit in that game. Their guy got hit, I might have mentioned this before, with an 82-mile-an-hour off-speed pitch on a 2-2 count in a 1-run game. And then the next guy, they're like, oh, he hit back-to-back. Okay, he intentionally hit 2 guys in a row. Like, now that you've got base runners and everything, we're going to just keep giving guys free bases? I don't think so. And then Austin Green gets hit again when he comes up. So it's like, okay, at the very least, this went both ways to some extent. And, like, I don't want to get down in the weeds and argue which ones were intentional, which ones weren't. I don't think those 2 on the back-to-back were intentional. And I saw griping that they were throwing him high and inside. Like, okay, well, so what? Like, you're allowed to throw the ball wherever you want. That's not an offense. Like, yeah, if you're throwing behind guys or over their head, that's one thing. But, like, throwing it up and in the zone is not an offense. So I'll tie a bow on it with this. Hang on.
No, you can't. You can't play it. No, you can't play it. We're on YouTube. We're on YouTube.
I'm just going to do one line. Calm down.
All right, we're gonna get copyrighted
for one line.
Yeah, you can't stream any music on YouTube. They find it, dude.
It's fine.
Just say it.
Go cry about it. And then cry harder, and then cry some more.
You got to play the John Mayer songs on Twitch.
Here's the other. This is hilarious. This is my favorite interaction.
Yeah.
You say I like to talk trash. I said we. I'll reply. I do try to live by that rule. Like, if you come in our mentions talking, like, insulting us, then I'll flame you. But I'm not going to go find your tweets and, like, dig them up and try to flame you. So we make a joke because TCU has won in basketball and football recently. After the game went final, we tweeted death, taxes, and Texas Tech beating TCU because this was the first time you'd beaten them in one of the main revenue sports in quite some time. I guess since baseball 2 years ago or basketball last season. But anyway, the joke was that like you haven't been beating them a lot recently. And a TCU fan took the bait, and I very politely said that's the joke with a fish emoji. Didn't call him any names. I didn't quote tweet him to like send him to all of our followers. I just replied. And he's like, well, you guys are just so out of pocket and so stupid all the time. And it starts insulting us. So I said, cry a little harder.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm not crying. I'm just, and then goes on for another paragraph. He said something about being focused on the next game and multiple ways I could have gone with that. I'm sure his focus will help TCU win their next game. I was like, crying that a podcast's Twitter account is responsible for a couple wild pitches doesn't really sound like moving on. Sounds a little more like crying.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't even care what your next response is. You replied to me first. I was like, no, you quote tweeted our tweet and then started insulting us. And then when we give it back to you, you decide you don't want to engage anymore. And we're just a bunch of morons. So that's funny to me. When I did it with the Lupton guys too. I wasn't going to flame their picks until they mentioned us and said, are y'all going to flame our picks this week? I was like, well, since most of y'all picked TCU to win the series and y'all lost, like, sure. But like, it didn't have to be that way. Y'all didn't have to mention us. And there were, Rob, also, there were a million TCU fan tweets I could have quote tweeted with John Mayer saying, go cry about it. And I didn't because we weren't mentioned in them.
Right.
But had they come in our replies, I would have loved to. So you say I'm a trash talker. I think I showed a lot of restraint. I'm going to pat myself on the back here.
Just because you like trash talking doesn't mean you're aggressive and always doing it. Did you enjoy heckling at the games?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I've never seen someone who is as good of trash talker as you be so adverse to wanting to be called a trash talker.
I pride myself
Where does
on
your badge of honor, man?
Well, no, I don't want to just be like some trash talking troll on Twitter, but like if you mention us, I'm like, sure, I'll reply.
The Rangers got shut out by Baltimore, by the way. Season over.
That sucks.
All right, so the Texas Tech baseball team, let's finish out this game. They never trailed after they took the lead in the bottom of the third following the shutdown inning from Trendon Parrish, where he initiated the outs by tagging out Davis at third. You get out of that inning. You take the lead in the bottom of that inning. 5-3. You do not trail again. You score several more times. They have 2 innings with 1 run apiece. Ryan Free pitches very well, in my opinion, to get you 2. Brandon Beckel. Cade McGarr pitched 1 batter. And I thought it should have been a strikeout. He got a walk, and then Free comes in season high, 3 full innings, 61 pitches. But Trendon Parrish, if he can give you 4 and hold him to 3 every Sunday, you'll have a good opportunity the rest of the Big 12 season to win some games.
I loved what I saw from Trendon Parrish. And even that first inning, which was bad, and I was thinking like, okay, you still need a Sunday starter. I think wasn't as bad as it appeared because he got a couple ground balls in the infield. One of them might have been a double play ball, would have been at least been 1 out, but Green was trying to cover the bag for the base runner. And so it went like right behind him. And then another one, there was, I think, an error on Bizel. So some of those base runners weren't even really Parrish's fault. Like those are pretty manageable balls that were put in play.
They called that on Bizel. It really should have been on Cash for not getting the pick.
Yeah. I mean, either way. But
yeah, I thought that was just a tough play.
But to battle back from that, and it took him a ton of pitches. I think it was 91 or 92 pitches just to get through the 4th. But like, hey, beggars can't be choosers at this point. If he can give you 4 innings every Sunday, and it's pretty good like that, I'll take it at this point. And hopefully he can extend that to 5 or 6 at some point. But I love his just toughness. He's got that dog in him.
Yeah.
Get the soundboard ready. But I like Trendon Parrish. if he's comfortable starting and not coming out of the pen. This was only his third career start, but I love his fire. I love watching him play. His ERA might not be as good as some other guys on the team, but he kind of reminds me of Chase Hampton last year.
Oh.
Chase Hampton at the end of last season things started clicking. He was pitching really well, ton of emotion on the mound. And I think our guys have learned, show as much emotion as you want, just direct it at your own guys.
Right.
And not at the other team's dugout, and you're fine.
Right.
And
Right.
Parrish, I think he learned from Beckel and Beckel's mistake. He gets fired up when he retires the side, but he directs it all at our dugout, and it fires those guys up. So I loved what I saw from him, and if he's a Sunday starter going forward, that's totally fine with me. I'll look forward to watching him pitch.
Yeah, and again, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Baylor, Kansas State, none of those teams are as good, in my opinion. Maybe West Virginia. I would like to see them play a few more Big 12 games. But none of those teams are as good top to bottom as the 3 teams you've played so far in Big 12 play. So I think you do have some opportunities there.
What did you think about the Big 12 power rankings?
Let me say one more thought. Saturday, I thought TCU was just a good team that beat you and was better that day. Sunday, I thought Texas Tech was just the better team. That's 2 evenly matched teams. Friday, total comedy of errors. It was a crap show. You were lucky to win that one, I thought. They would have been lucky to win it as well. And I thought Saturday and Sunday were 2 evenly matched teams. TCU got the better of you. Texas Tech got the better of them.
On Sunday as well, for the second day in a row, you gave their starting pitcher his worst start of the season.
Yeah, Cam Brown. Who's very good.
I don't know if he started against Arkansas or if that was a relief appearance. He got hit pretty well in that one, so maybe you say second or tied for the best, but a really good starter that they expect a lot from. They expect to put him in a position to win the game, and you scored plenty of runs while finally getting some zero frames from TCU when you were pitching after the first inning, and so that was good to see. I mean, I think the bats give you a ton of confidence that you have some margin for error on the mound and on the defensive side of things. You still want to clean it up. You want to find some pitching. You would like to not have to win games 20-16. But I think you're going to be in a lot of games. Like, you can score 8 runs any given night on just about anybody, even if they've got a good pitcher. And so that should keep you somewhat competitive.
By the way, the total in tomorrow's ACU game might as well be 30.
I don't think
70 straight out.
I don't think I would flinch at like 20.5.
No. I mean, it's the wind is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. I feel like usually college baseball totals maybe in the 13-16 kind of range.
Yeah.
So, especially with midweek pitching, like our bats versus, their midweek guy, and maybe they kind of pitch backwards and maybe they have their ace go in the midweek, but I have no idea who we're going to start on Tuesday. And if our good pitchers are giving up, 6 runs in a 3 or 4 inning start, like what's our midweek guy going to do?
Right.
I mean, I hope we don't see it, but I mean, goodness. All right. Big 12 power rankings and then your worried-o-meter. I think we should update that every Sunday.
It's Park in the Park tomorrow. That'll be fun. And Zane Petty's pitching tomorrow.
Okay.
Your Big 12 power, our Big 12 power rankings. I don't. First of all, I didn't like them, but I don't know what to do differently. Like, it's almost impossible to do the top 4 teams because Oklahoma State's beaten Texas. Texas swept you. You beat Oklahoma State. TCU has done what they've done. So it's all like, well, I guess you're ahead of TCU. You're ahead of Oklahoma State, but Oklahoma State's ahead of Texas. Texas is ahead of you. So I think you pretty much just left them how it was last week, the top 3.
I think TCU was ahead of us last week.
You did flip that. So yeah. I think those are the top 3. I think you probably could do tiers if you wanted. And the top tier would be Texas, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech.
It's almost as if you can't use one series to determine the power. And that's what everybody kept. They're like K-State fans are, well, we beat OU. Okay.
Yeah.
OU has 2 wins this weekend, better than your best win all season.
Yeah.
and y'all lost a home series to West Virginia. Like, same with Oklahoma State fans are like, don't you know we beat Texas? Like, yeah, you did, but that was one series. If this was power rankings based on the last 3 games, okay, you'd have an argument, but like, it's a fluid. Okay, so Texas is 8-2 in their last 10. Oklahoma State is 7-3. They won a 1-run game at home on Sunday because Texas pitcher had to exit after 1 inning, I think. So I was like, okay, well, the top 3 teams in the power rankings have all played each other. Texas is 4-2, Oklahoma State 3-3, Tech 2-4. Because we could do this all day. If Oklahoma State, well, we beat Texas. Okay, well, we beat you. We're not number 1 in the power rankings.
Right.
Because Texas swept us. It's just circular logic. And so
yeah,
I think Texas has more quad 1 wins. They're playing better lately. On a neutral field, I would favor them over Oklahoma State. So I'm sorry, you fans. Here's the other thing that, Rob, sometimes, man, every week when I've put Oklahoma State higher than they allegedly ought to be in the rankings, their fans reply and say, we're not that good. We're so inconsistent. We've got, like, okay. And so then I put you at number 2. It's like, oh, how dare you? We're number 1. It's like, y'all were saying that 4 was too high a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. And then, like, West Virginia fans want some respect. It's like, okay, place somebody in the top half of the conference. Like, I know you went on the road. You're the only Big 12 team with a road series win.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think the gap between West Virginia and TCU is huge at this juncture. But it's like, hey, maybe go line up against TCU, Oklahoma State, Tech, Texas, and then come back to me.
Yeah, West Virginia's final 6 Big 12 games are 3 against Texas Tech and then 3 against Texas. So we'll see how they finish.
It'd be tough, yeah. You're worried, O-meter. You were a 0 last week. I was a 4. And so I'll pose it to you in the same terms we did on Twitter. Or I think it was 1 to 10. 1 is Omaha. 10 is we're a bottom third of the Big 12 team. We're as bad as, Baylor and Kansas.
I feel really good in some ways because of who you've played already. As many issues as I have with maybe a pitching staff or the DH, I think you have a comparable or better pitching staff than anyone left in the Big 12 that you have to play. Top to bottom. And I think you still have an opportunity to be much better than you've been. And then I would put your lineup against anybody left on your schedule, Stanford included. So I really am not worried about finishing the season strong. But I was at a 0 last week, somewhat facetiously, just because you lost 4 in a row, and I was trying to, hype myself back up. But I wouldn't be more than a 2. I still really believe in this team because of your offense and because the ceilings of what I think Girton and Molina can be and what Beckel has been, his last 2 outings.
I think I'm unchanged. I'm a 4. And I would have liked to have moved down after a series win against a good team. But the way you won it, still revealed some pretty obvious deficiencies.
Sure.
And so I don't want to say I'm more worried after taking 2 out of 3 against a good team either, especially as well as the bats were, or as good as the bats were all series. I think, you might have a low ceiling right now because of the defense and pitching, but you have a high floor. Like, if you can score that many runs any given night, you're also not going to just get blown out a ton. So I'll say 4 still. And if and when the pitching and defense improves, I'll move down. If it gets worse or the hitting gets worse, I'll move it up. But I think basically I'm where I was last week.
In conference play, Nolan Hester is batting 500 in 9 games. Tracer Lopez is batting 469. Gavin Cash is batting 357. Bazell and Hudson White batting 333. Gage Harrelson batting 302. Owen Washburn 300 in 6 games. Austin Green 294. That's in 9 Big 12 games for all of them except for Hudson White and Owen Washburn.
Well, and Harrelson trending up quickly. His numbers don't really tell the full story of how hot his bat is right now. Big 12 newcomer of the week. I think Keith posted the stats the last week. So 4 games, he was 9 for 18 with, all sorts of extra base hits, RBI, whatever.
Yeah.
Another note on Washburn, I broke it down a different way. You have conference play. His first 8 games played where he made a plate appearance, 1 for 20. That's a .050 batting average. Like he wasn't even batting 100. 5 walks, 4 Ks, and he scored 3 runs. So he managed to get on base via walk or whatever and came around to score. 1 for 20, his first 8 games. His last 7 games, which bulk of that against good teams in conference play, 10 for 27. That's a .370 average. 5 walks, 5 Ks, 11 runs, 8 RBIs.
Yeah, and he's got hits in 5 out of 7 Big 12 games he's been in.
I don't remember which episode it was, but you and I were pretty insistent. Like those numbers, as good as he is at baseball, those numbers cannot possibly stay where they are. They're due to trend up, and they certainly have. And even when he's getting out, like he's making contact, he's getting underneath some pitches, and they're easy flyouts. But other times, he's making solid contact and just hitting it to a guy. But 370 in his last 8 games, I think that includes some Iowa, obviously some Big 12. These are postseason caliber opponents that he's going 370 against. And maybe it regresses down from there, but if he's another 300 batting average or better guy, and even when he's not getting on base, he's putting the ball in play and he can get you a sac fly or move runners, whatever. That's just a bat you didn't have the first part of the season that has just totally come alive recently. So that's really good to see.
Yeah, and Austin Green, the only one in the starting lineup consistently through Big 12 play, again, 9 games, has 10 RBI, which would be third in Big 12 play behind Gavin Cash and Nolan Hester. Well, Nolan Hester is tied in second with 10. So even though he's batting .294 in Big 12 play, he's still being really productive.
Yeah.
Maddie just got here, so we need to start the episode over.
All right, so here's what happened with number 11 on TCU, Maddie.
I guess final thoughts on the series and the episode. I guess I don't have anything else to say.
Well, we got to do the Discord mailbag.
Oh, good grief!
The Diversified Lenders Discord mailbag. I guess one final thought on the series that I haven't said already. An inside source connected to the Texas Tech baseball program indicates to the Gauchos that Dylan Carter's wrist is, quote, getting there. And that's all we have on that situation. Anything to add, Rob?
No, I think you said it all. Also, I was not listening because I was looking up the Discord mailbag.
I was saying that we had a source inside the Tech baseball program that indicates Dylan Carter's wrist is, quote, getting there.
Yes. Level 1 source. All right. Start bench cut, spearmint, peppermint, cinnamon gum.
Cutting cinnamon, start peppermint.
I would cut cinnamon, start spearmint.
Can you give me a
big red guy?
What?
Are you a big red guy?
No. Can you give me a Scooby-Doo cinnamon?
Is that good?
Yeah.
All right. Per Keith of the off-referenced Red Raider Dugout Dinger Derby podcast, this weekend's games totaled over 13 hours. Would you guys like to see these game times reeled in somehow? If yes, how so? Now, we talked about TCU. Lollygagging and having 17 reviews. And here's one thing I would like to do in college baseball. I want to have 3 reviews per team, and they have to be initiated by the dugout. I don't want the umpires initiating reviews. I think you should get 3 challenges and use them at your pace. I don't want 7 reviews in a game.
I've got one more thing on the series unrelated to the question you just asked.
Okay.
On Sunday, TCU's first 5 batters reached base safely. They scored 3 runs. And then over the course of 27 outs, they scored 2 more runs. That is not the fault of the umpires. So you can whine about balls and strikes. The Paris strikeout pitch in particular that got 55 ejected.
That was a great pitch.
I freeze framed it. It looks like a great pitch to me. If somebody wants to tell me why it's a ball, I've got it screenshotted on Twitter. We can discuss it. So pace of play. Yeah. When a TCU batter walks, instead of standing at home plate and then walking backwards to first base for 2 or 3 minutes, if you made them jog, okay, even in basketball, when you're shooting free throws, there's a clock. I don't know how many seconds you have to shoot it, but you can't just hold. Okay, even when you walk, you have to get to first base in, I don't know, 12 seconds, 10 seconds.
It was ridiculous.
If you're sprinting, it's what, 3 or 4?
On Friday, the in a 4.5-hour game, the double steal foul ball combo, where they had the double steal on, they fouled it off, and then from the other from second and third, walked back to first and second over and over and over. And I mean walked.
Because apparently they can't get a sign while they're standing on first base. So when they walked, they look back at the base running coach and get the sign while they're literally walking backwards down the first base line. It's like, can you jog your ass over there and then look back to the dugout or the third base coach and get the sign?
Yes.
Like, what are we doing here? And then, when you walk back after every foul pitch on a double steal or you walk the bases after home run, that makes the game longer. And the umps didn't do anything to enforce it. They didn't give out any warnings. I mean, Beckel got suspended 4 games for talking mess when he had every right to.
Right.
And TCU can single-handedly prolong the games by about 30% every day, and there's no consequence for it. So that's one star. The other, Rob, when the skipper is trying to get ejected to fire up his team, it's like Sarloos. I keep mispronouncing that.
That's
It's the
crazy.
damnedest thing. Like sore loser was, just oblige him and kick him out.
Yes.
Because he sends all of his goons out there, and now you've got 3 assistants giving your entire umpire crew the business.
Chest bumping them.
Yeah, taking their hands off of it's like, dude, they want to get ejected. It's Sunday. Their team is behind at this point. They're trying to fire up the dugout. Just eject him. Because otherwise he's going to come out 3 more times and do this. And he did. And they finally had enough of it and did it. One more thing on the umpiring, because I just thought of this.
When he got tossed, he took 10 minutes to leave.
Yes. I mean, goodness. They almost had to play the Adios Amigo song twice.
God.
All kinds of things you can do to pick up pace of play, all of them related to TCU lollygagging. One more note on umpiring, because I saw this from TCU fans that I didn't quote tweet with the John Mayer verse. 55 got ejected, and here's why. It was called strike 3, and he stood in the box to kind of show up the ump, said something to the ump, and going back to the dugout, if you're watching on YouTube, he reaches over his head and slams the bat down. Gage Harrelson, and this is a somewhat fair point, but here's the distinction. Gage Harrelson gets caught looking on strike 3. He's upset about it. He kind of twirls, tosses the bat, doesn't reach over his head to slam it, but tosses the bat, and then he goes to the dugout. He doesn't show up the ump.
He sprints to the dugout.
I'm sure he said something in the moment, along the lines of bad call or oh crap, whatever.
Yeah.
But he got it over with, and it was more of a toss than a throw, and maybe that's a distinction without a difference. I'm sure the Lupton guys are listening and rolling their eyes at that, but I think Harrelson he was close, but I think those were not totally identical incidents.
Well, and Sorluz was already out of the dugout in front of Bite, I think is what they call him, before they tossed him. So he knew. I mean, the Sarloos is at the umpire before the umpire makes the ejection call.
Yeah.
So TCU had no hustle. You lollygag back to base. You lollygag back from the huddle. You know what that makes them, Kyle?
Lollygaggers?
Lollygaggers. That's from Big Head.
So, yeah, that's how you do pace of play. It reminded me of 2 things.
And yes, I'm a little hoarse, by the way.
What?
I'm a little hoarse.
Yeah, me too.
People are saying.
When I was a kid, Barry Bonds was going for the single-season home run record and the all-time home run record. And that guy, he was so geared up, and he got walked so often because he was insane. But he would do that. Ball 4, he would like drop the bat. Then he had to unstrap all 4 straps on his elbow pad, and he drops that. And he's got the shin guard, and it took him 5 minutes to get to first base. And because he walked 3 times a game, it was like, okay, like let's get on with it.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of every time a TCU batter walked. And the other thing it reminded me of on their mound visits and just overall coach behavior, when we played Duke in the Super Regional 2018, their skipper, if he wanted to make a mound visit, great time to go grab a hot dog, use the restroom. I mean, the guy's steps were about 3 inches apiece, and it took him 2.5 minutes to get to the mound. It was absurd.
Absurd.
I'm of the mindset when the coach signals over the umpire, like, hey, I'm going to take a mound visit here. Like, you start the clock then.
Yeah.
Not like once he's on the mound.
Right.
Like, because they're just going to take forever walking back and forth, and it's horrible.
Start, bench, cut, MLB rule changes, 2 pickoff attempts, ban the shift, and the pitch clock.
Starting pitch clock. I'm a fan of the pitch clock.
Big fan.
I am philosophically torn on banning the shift. I do think it'll improve the product of play, but I also wish guys would just learn to bunt and hit oppo and they wouldn't shift. It's like saying, they're dropping too many DBs in coverage. We can't throw the ball, make them blitz 5 guys every down. It's like, well, why don't you just run the ball if they're dropping that many guys in coverage? So that's frustrating that baseball just refused to adapt to the shift. Like every other sport adapts to. In basketball, you invent zone defense and offenses adapt. And then they invent the full court press and offenses adapt. Same with football. You throw out all kinds of coverages, blitz packages. There's always an expectation that the opponent adjusts. And for some reason, baseball can't do that. Having said that, without the shift, it'll be a better product. So I don't think I like the pickoff limitation. I get that if you go over there 6 times in a row, it takes a lot of time. But when it's definitively capped and the base runner knows, like, okay, he can't come over here anymore, that kind of adds a whole new element to the game. And I don't know if I'm a fan of that. So I guess I'll bench the shift and cut the pickoffs.
I think ultimately I agree. Are the Rangers good?
Yeah, we're going 161-1.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough loss tonight. Yeah, I think they're good. I bet the slim over at 80.5. I think they're a 500 team. I think if you stay healthy, you could be above 500. And that puts you in a position in today's playoffs to make the playoffs. People are asking, are the Gauchos? Oh, no. The question ultimately was, are the Rangers going undefeated? No, they got shut out tonight by the Orioles. Real quick, somebody's making fun of us for streaming during national sporting events. UConn up 49-36 with 12 minutes left. So great game we're missing.
Do you want to take on the national championship game?
The women's game was more impactful.
Oh, I wasn't going to go there, but
what's the take?
For all the hullabaloo about what a crazy tournament this is and underdogs and high seeds going, deeper than they ever have or whatever, a team that has like 5 natties in the last quarter century is going to win it. And so it's like
by 15.
I don't know why UConn doesn't get the same credit as Duke. I guess because they're not as consistently good, but like their peaks are just as good as Duke's.
Yeah, or Gonzaga. It feels like Gonzaga is like some powerhouse. They've not won a national championship. UConn's won multiple. By the way, UConn, your buddy M. Haver reporting today that he's hearing that UConn wants a full entrance into the Big 12.
He hears a lot of things. I think he hears a voice in his head sometimes, or maybe multiple. But I've been on that train. I've been on UConn for basketball only. I think you should still focus West for now. But as far as candidates in the East, whether basketball only or full membership, it's a flagship school in that region. It's a region you're not in. You're not in New England. Large enrollment, 25,000, 30,000, I think. legit blue blood basketball, especially if you do get Arizona, Gonzaga for basketball only, put Kansas, UConn, Gonzaga, Arizona in the same conference, that's legit. That will sell. If they're going to do the basketball rights separate from football rights in the next TV deal, that is the kind of basketball package coast to coast that you could make some dough on, I think.
Would you stream your colonoscopy? Might
No.
do bees. No?
No.
Why?
Why would you?
Content, man.
No.
Cream. That's a hard no, or
Yeah, that's like a non-negotiable.
what medical procedure would you stream?
Probably not any of them.
Just you don't want people inside of you, or
Next question.
I could be convinced to stream mine if I got paid for it. What does the NCAA insist on capturing Why does the NCAA insist on capturing West Coast eyeballs when roughly 60% of the country lives in the Eastern time zone?
Here's why. I could pull up the precise data. It's on our Patreon if you want to look at it. Patreon.com/GamblingGauchos. If you took any game, let's say Baylor versus BYU, and you played at noon on Saturday on whatever, let's say ESPN2. And then you play that same game, the same teams, same channel, ESPN2 at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. At noon, you're going up against like a third of that day's college football slate. At 10:30 Eastern time, you're going up against nobody else. And so that's why I have the percentages on like the definitive percentage that playing in the After Dark window helps you on like an apples to apples basis. And so that's why you want the fourth time zone. It gives you a whole new window to play in, which means more advertisers, more dollars. And those games will get higher ratings than they would if you played them at noon, 2:30, or 6 p.m. with the same teams on the same network on the same day. It's basically lack of competition means higher ratings. It's why Sunday Night Football always beats whatever's on Fox and CBS earlier in the day. NBC isn't any more accessible of a channel than the other two. It might not have a more compelling matchup than the other two, but the other two are going up against the entire day's slate of games. Sunday night is the only game that's on, and so it's always going to do better. Pretty much always.
I mean, I get all that, but in this instance, there's no other games. It's the only game. And they started at 8:30 Central.
Which one?
At the national championship game. I think that's what the question was in regards to.
Oh, I thought it was about like the Big 12 going after the After Dark window. I must have totally missed the premise of the question.
Maybe I did. I just heard a different conversation talking about why that was so late. The tip off late.
My wife asked this as well. She asked why the football national championship is on a Monday night. It's like, well, if it's on Sunday, they're going up against the NFL, which they're not going to do.
Right. Saturday too at that point.
Yeah. And like Goodell has mentioned, because people want the Super Bowl to be on Saturday so they can sleep off their hangover Sunday instead of having to go to work Monday. And he says like the ratings would not plummet, but like we'd miss out on a huge chunk of change. More people are going to watch Sunday because you're competing with less. Now, not TV-wise, but just like people's time, they're generally busier on Saturday than they would be on Sunday night. So I think they've thought this through. They're not like leaving money on the table or viewers on the table by playing it Monday night. It's also why I want the Big 12 going forward to play on Friday nights, college football.
I agree with that. Do you think we will alter this weekend's pitching rotation with Stanford on deck Monday and Tuesday?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I would say hard no, because you're setting it. You don't set it for Stanford. You set it for Oklahoma.
Right. Yeah. No, I think I think Girton, Molina, Parrish will remain the same if that's what they're asking. So I don't know what you'll do for Stanford.
Unless Girton's going to move to the bullpen, then you could pitch him Tuesday or Monday.
Yeah. Because like so moving Parrish was pretty consistently paired with Molina on Saturdays. And if you want Beckel to pitch twice, it has to be Friday, Sunday. Not has to, but like that's probably ideal. And so it kind of leaves a hole on Saturday where Parrish was if Beckel isn't going to be there. So you're going to go somebody and then a middle reliever and then Beckel on Friday, Parrish, middle reliever, Beckel Sunday, and then I don't know who's going to close it out on Saturdays. Maybe that's a Divine spot or Sanders spot. But yeah, I think you'll keep the same weekend guys we saw, unless they want to try somebody else on Friday, in the Friday slot where Girton was.
Yeah, and I would assume, Free probably gets a weekend off after pitching 61 pitches Sunday. Because it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday this weekend.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. But you know what I'm saying, like slotting them in the same order.
Right. Yeah, I
but
get it.
Technically different day of the week.
And yeah, I think you'll have Crowley and Aaron says Divine, and I think you'll see, Cade McGar, if you're really going to have him, give that guy a shot. Yeah, I think you'll see some arms. You'll probably rest some arms for Stanford and have a full bullpen against Stanford.
I think Tabor Fast might get another shot at a start.
Yeah. Kyle Robinson.
Yeah, Kyle Robinson might. So, yeah, I don't know.
Start bench cut, pellet smoker, Blackstone, or the old school gas / charcoal grill.
All depends on what you're making, of course.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
I got to tell you, maybe it's recency bias because I'm new to it, but I like the Blackstone.
I'm starting the Blackstone.
I actually don't own a smoker, like a pellet smoker, so I'll cut it and then bench the traditional grill. All reliable. That's like 6-man. Bench sounds harsh, but
are you charcoal or gas?
Gas.
Okay, you're propane.
Yeah,
propane accessories. Kind of look like Hank Hill.
Gas.
Final question: start bench cut double plays. The 5-4-3, the 6-4-3, or the 3-4-3.
3-4-3 usually worries me. I feel like that one's maybe difficult to pull off at times.
Yeah.
You tried one. Was it this series? Or I think it was.
Yeah, you got the out at second.
But, well, no, I'm talking about the time Cash hit the runner.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was on a 3-4-3. He was throwing down there and he hit the runner, and so you got nobody.
Or like the 3-4-1.
Yeah, I liked the I guess it's just a 1 when Parrish tagged out 11 on the third baseline. It's just a 1 put out.
Double plays. I'm 6-4-3, the classic.
I like 6-4-3.
Yeah. Down to third, over to second, round the first. Maddie wants us to speak English. Learn baseball, Maddie.
Cry more, Maddie.
But we can't play the song. All right. Final thoughts.
Yeah, you really freaked out when I played that song.
Dude. Eventually we're going to monetize this YouTube channel. We can't have a bunch of copyright hits on us.
Here's a comment. Final thought. Join the Patreon so you too can plan and join on the Gauchos Laramie Labor Day weekend football trip.
Go ahead.
You look like you wanted to say something.
2 things. That and an interview with Norin Todiase coming up. How do they listen to that, Kyle?
Patreon.com/Gambling Gauchos. We've got some interviews that aren't released publicly there. Interviews with all kinds of tech legends, and Norin Todiase coming up soon. Also access to the #1 Texas Tech fan Discord server. Would love to have you join us. It's only $5 a month. That's why I'm wearing the cowboy hat, man. I'm so focused, locked in on Wyoming, and that is going to be a fun trip. The football game, of course, cool venue, but we're going to, I think, party in Denver the day before. Hopefully have some stuff in the works for kind of like some game day experience stuff. So trying to iron that out with the good folks up in Wyoming more soon, hopefully.
Amen. We also, that's probably too early for that.
We got a comment from Big Hen. Join the Discord so I can cyberbully you into Bolivian. Not Oblivion.
Do you think anybody knows what that's from? Do you know what that's from?
No.
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
It's figured out. Anything else? It's awkward.
Was I too hard on TCU?
No. But if I said you were, you would just go on some rant about how you weren't. So
No, I would have asked about like, okay, when the starting point is like you get called a piece of crap, scum of the earth, like how would you prefer me to respond? You know?
right.
And also like, yeah, just you don't have to you lean into being the heel year round, every sport. And then, oh no, your fans weren't nice to us. The umpire called a strike. Please don't be so mean to us. Like, give me a break.
Cry more. Oh, Big Hen thought he made that up. No, it's a Mike Tyson quote. Big
I
Hen.
thought y'all were making fun of me because I said Oblivion on Twitter the other night, and y'all were just like making fun of my word choice saying Bolivian. I didn't know it was a reference to anything.
No, Mike Tyson said in an interview, I'm going to put you into oblivion. Oblivia.
That's hilarious.
Now I'm feeling like I don't know what it's from. I'm fairly certain that's Mike Tyson. All right. We just hit 2 hours, so hair looks great under the cowboy hat. Some people were chirping that you're not supposed to wear straw hats until after Easter, and you're about a week early.
Yeah, no, I'm always early. I go seersucker, all that. You know, spring colors. I wear them early. I go before Easter.
Also, how many times have you worn that hat?
Oh, I don't know. What kind of question is that? How many times have you worn that shirt?
No, it looks well used. I just.
Oh, man, I got it used.
I've never seen you in it.
Yeah,
That's
no,
cool.
I got it used.
Do you wear it often?
Not often. What?
I wasn't coming at you.
I'm just like, how do you answer that question? Like, I don't know.
I just, do you wear cowboy hats a lot is what I was trying to say.
Not a lot. Sometimes if I'm like outdoors doing yard work and I want sun protection on my face and neck, that's a good looking hat, brother. Yeah, put that on. God dang. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Y'all seeing this?
There we go. It's a 10-gallon.
That's a gaucho right there.
I do not wear this ever.
Dude, when we go to Wyoming, I'm wearing cowboy hat, pearl snap, bolo tie.
Use some black felt hats
We're going mustaches.
We gotta go black straw, maybe.
Yeah.
No, it's it's after Labor Day.
It's right before Labor Day, right?
I don't know the rules.
You can't wear white after Labor Day.
Is that what it is?
I think you can wear black year round. Hey, if you're a picador and you're coming to Wyoming with us, start growing out your mustache now because we need to all roll in there with matching mustaches.
I'm also not gonna cut my hair until Labor Day, and I'm gonna get a mullet before we go. I mean, I kind of have a mullet now, but
Rob, you're making the comments act up here.
Yeah, I saw that.
13. Holy cow.
I saw that. Felt after Labor Day. Big Hen knows. I want to get out of here.
All right, let's do it then. Love y'all.
Bye.